Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on Josh Stories. I am Oni Opala. Let's begin. In another, in another defining moment for the Ambazonian struggle, history is being written not with bullets or ballots, but with vision and resolve. The Ambazonian Strategic Constituent Assembly, the ASCA, has officially kicked off in Washington, D.C., bringing together representatives from across the homeland and diaspora in a landmark effort to chart the future of a free and self-governed Ambazonia. The gathering, hailed as a strategic turning point, signals a bold shift from resistance to reconstruction, placing unity, governance, and purpose at the center of the liberation agenda. While Ambazonians build their nation through dialogue and deliberation, French Cameroon is responding with force in a chilling display of colonial power politics. The Biya regime has begun militarizing the upcoming presidential election across Ambazonian territory. Reports confirm the deployment of over 1,800 elite troops, none of them native to Ambazonia, trained and stationed specifically to intimidate, suppress, and manipulate the electoral process. This is not democracy. It is occupation disguised as governance. But Ambazonians are not afraid. President Samuel Ikomesaku, speaking boldly at the ASCA's opening session, declared that no election organized by La Republic de Cameroon will be allowed to take place on Ambazonian soil. His message was clear. Foreign imposed rule has no place in the land that has already chosen the path of self-determination. This is more than a rejection of illegitimate ballots. It is a reaffirmation of sovereignty. Amid rising tensions and international scrutiny, the ASCA emerges as a beacon of hope and strategy for Ambazonians. It is not merely a political meeting. It's not even just a political meeting. It is the embodiment of a people refusing to be erased. As the world watches, Ambazonians are reminded everyone that the road to freedom is not paved by occupying armies or fraudulent elections, but by the unwavering will of a united nation determined to rise. All these and more we will dwell on tonight on Undaunted, but first let's get the prime headlines. With Ambazonians welcoming campaign period of the French Cameroon election with a ghost town today, Monday, September 29, 2025. Also tonight, strategic reforms, ethical governance, and leadership renewal takes center stage in Washington for the ASCA summit. Also, reels of misrule deadly floods in Manyu exposes colonial neglect and failed territorial administration. At least 2 members of the squad specialized in kidnappings in Bambui were neutralized on Sunday, September 28, 2025. French Cameroon militarizes Ambazonians ahead of presidential election, while on the African scene, Gabon awaits crucial election results following first vote since 2023 coup. Netanyahu and Trump meeting comes amid shifting Middle East and uncertain Gaza future. Now let's get the news in full briefings. their stark display of defiance and unity, Ambazonians observed the Ghost Town campaign today, September 29th, 2025, effectively shutting down all towns across the state. This shutdown coincides with the start of the presidential election campaign period in the French Cameroon, launched on October 27, an exercise Ambazonians have vowed to boycott. Residents stayed indoors, businesses remained closed, and streets were eerily quiet, reflecting the widespread support for the boycott. The Ghost Town campaign, a long-standing form of protest in Ambazonia, shows the ongoing grievances and calls for secession of greater autonomy that have fueled tensions between Ambazonian State Army and La République du Cameroon government. Despite the outlawed presidential election activities kicking off, there was little to no visible sign of campaign activities in the affected areas as the populace adhered to the boycott call. The boycott also highlights the complex political landscape in the Cameroon, where different groups have varying levels of engagement with the electoral process. For Ambazonians, the Ghost Town is more than a protest. It's a testament and statement of their continued struggle for recognition and autonomy within or from the La République du Cameroon. The election lockdown starts on the 2nd of October till the 14th of October 2025. Strategic reforms, ethical governance, and leadership renewal take center stage in Washington. For all we know, the second day of the Ambazonian Strategic Constituent Assembly, the ASCA 2025, Day 3 has started. But let's give you the highlights from Day 2. Well, of course, it's unfolded with series of impactful presentations and critical leaderships and its affirmations, marking a pivotal moment in the roadmap towards the realization of Ambazonian aspirations. Held in Washington, D.C., the Assembly brought together key leaders, intellectuals, and grassroots organizers to deliberate on the structural and ideological framework of the Ambazonian struggle. A standout moment came from Dr. Tom Ndula, who delivered a compelling presentation on the Code of Ethics, a framework intended to govern the conduct of individuals in positions of authority. His address emphasized the necessity for accountability, discipline, and lawful conduct as fundamental and foundational principles for leadership. The day also featured a powerful presentation by Secretary Steve Never, who addressed structural reforms and the urgent need for grassroots mobilization. His detailed breakdown of organizational renewal was lauded as an eye-opener, reigniting discussions on community-driven activism and bottom-up approaches to governance. On the educational front, Professor Ipote presented a comprehensive vision for education in Ambazonia, aligning academic reform with the values of the society Ambazonians seek to build. His contribution also included the presentation of an official affirmation and a set of administrative directives to the President aimed at reinforcing institutional effectiveness. Capping the day's event, the Assembly witnessed the reaffirmation of leadership as President Samuel Ikamasako accepted the mandate to continue leading as President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. In his acceptance, he underscored the reciprocal relationship between support and effective governance, signaling a renewed commitment to push forward under unified backing. ASCA 2025 continues to serve as a critical forum for redefining Ambazonian strategy, governance, and unity as the movement seeks a path forward rooted in accountability, education, and the will of the people. Of course, Day 3 is in progress, and tomorrow we'll definitely bring you up to speed with what has happened today in Day 3. Well, right now let's head into Manyu, where floods have ridden and taken over the people. The people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia continue to bear the brunt of La Republic de Cameroon's decades of mismanagement and poor governance. Today, the people of Manyu woke up to yet another disaster, devastating floods that have overwhelmed communities, swallowed homes, and destroyed critical infrastructure. Now, here's a video of Manyu. Now, you may be thinking, let's see that video. You may be thinking that
check your WhatsApp. I call you there. I don't take
a video of a stream or a lake. No, it's actually flood. As you can see in that striking image of this calamity is the collapse of a bridge in Manyu due to the flooding, a lifeline that once connected villages and facilitated trade, now torn apart by the raging waters. The destruction not only isolates entire populations but also deepens their despair, leaving them trapped in a humanitarian crisis with no meaningful intervention from the colonial authorities. This catastrophe is not merely the work of nature, it is the inevitable outcome of decades of negligence for town planning and deliberate abandonment of Ambazonians by the colonial regime. Successive Ambazonians in Yaoundé have consistently diverted resources meant for infrastructure development, leaving communities vulnerable to predictable disasters like flooding instead of proactive planning, modern drainage, and flood control system. Southern Cameroon has been subjected to makeshift projects, corruption-driven contracts, and empty promises. As the center of this neglect is Paul Etangan, La Republic of Cameroon's Territorial Minister of Administration, who is constitutionally tasked with ensuring the safety, planning, and development of territories under his watch. Instead, his tenure has been marked by a preoccupation with political witch hunts, oppressive schemes against dissenting voices, and other nefarious activities that have nothing to do with territorial administration. While Manyu drowns and bridges crumble, Atanganja remains fixated on silencing critics and consolidating Yaoundé's colonial grip on Ambazonia. The floods in Manyu are not an isolated tragedy. They are a mirror of a wider collapse across southern Cameroon under colonial regime. Roads remain impassable, cities drawn with the slightest rainfall, and rural communities are abandoned to fend for themselves. The cumulative effects is a landscape of ruin where lives are lost and livelihoods destroyed, all because those in power have chosen repression over responsibility. Today's disaster is a painful reminder that the colonial systems governing southern Cameroon is not only unjust, but also incapable of guaranteeing the safety and dignity of its people. While nature's fury may be unavoidable, the scale of destruction is undeniable man-made. Burn of decades of corruption, mismanagement, and a total disregard for the lives of Ambazonia. The people of Ambazonia now face a question: how long can they endure the ruins of misrule before charting a new course, where their safety, dignity, and future are no longer sacrificed on the altar of colonial neglect? All right, let's head into Bambui, where kidnappers have done something. Now, in another crackdown on colonial activities, at least two prominent members of a notorious kidnapping squad operated in Bambui were neutralized on Sunday, September 28, 2025. The kidnapping group, known for targeting university students and staff, had been a major source of fear and insecurity in the area. An investigation earlier in September shed light on the group's modus operandi, revealing a network of spies who closely monitored the movement of potential victims, particularly within the university communities. These spies would then provide the green light for abductions. The investigation also uncovered details about the group's financial motives. Once victims were kidnapped, the kidnappers would search for banking apps on their phones. If found, they would drain the victims' bank accounts before releasing them. This financial angle has been a key part of the group's operations, making their activities both lucrative and dangerous. While the killing has brought relief to residents, who can now move around more freely without the constant threat of abduction, the leader of the group remains at large, claiming to be an Ambazonian fighter. The leader has reportedly been using this guise to justify criminal activities that have nothing to do with the political struggle. The success of these operations is a welcome development for the people of Bambui, who have long suffered under the grip of these criminals. However, the search for the group's leader continues, with residents urging all to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activities. Meanwhile, in another related development, the Colonial Commissioner of Police in Widdicombe has also been neutralized. It was reported that he died in Bamenda. We'll bring you up to speed as that information unfolds. Coming up next, we head into neighboring La Republic de Cameroon and how La Republic de Cameroon has militarized Ambazonians ahead of presidential election. As French Cameroon's presidential elections approach, signals of pre-election militarizations are already unfolding across the country, and once again, the spotlight turns to Ambazonia. Reports indicate that over 1,800 young Bulu recruits have been absorbed into the elite Rapid Intervention Battalion Bs trained hastily on Ambazonian soil at Man-Over Bay near Victoria Town Center. Notably, not a single Ambazonian was included in this force. Their deployment, expected to be concentrated around Ambazonian territory, raises a pressing question. If the regime has no intention of conducting a free and fair vote in Ambazonia, why does it need troops on the ground? The answer lies in a deeply familiar pattern of suppression and control. For years, Ambazonians has been treated as not part of the national political community, but as a problem to be policed. The presence of external forces during elections is not about safeguarding ballots. It's about controlling the electoral environment through intimidation, voter suppression, and psychological warfare. The regime understands that in territories where it holds little popular legitimacy, it cannot win the hearts of the people. So it chooses to dominate their bodies, and, of course, not just dominating their bodies, it also dominates their minds as well. By deploying troops who owe no loyalty to the local population, the government ensures it can operate with impunity. These forces can harass election observers, block voters, and secure ballot boxes and transport, all while justifying their presence as a response to insecurity. Yet, it is a very act of flooding Ambazonia with non-native armed units that fuels instability in the first place. The true objective is not to count votes, but to manufacture an election result in an area where the people have been demanding self-determination for decades. The ballot box becomes a stage, that outcome pre-written. For the people of Ambazonia, this is not just an election, it's a continuation of systemic marginalization, a clear message that their voices are expendable, their rights negotiable, and their land a battleground for political theater. Yet, beneath the boots and ballots lies powerful truths. Those dismissed as ragtag boys are not simply rebels, but symbols of a just cause, one rooted in resilience, history, and a demand for dignity, while the state sends in soldiers to control Ambazonians as they prepare to resist with something far more potent and with purpose. Of course, you know that the President Samuel Sako, has, of course, given the lockdown to begin from the 2nd of October down till the 14th of October. So regardless of all the militarization elections will not hold in Ambazonia. That is what the president wants. And that's all we have for you from news from the home front. Right after the break, we'll head into Gabon, where Gabon awaits crucial election results following first vote since 2023 coup. Gabon is on edge as the nation awaits the result of its first legislative and local election since the August 2023 military coup that brought General Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema to power. More than 900,000 citizens were called to the polls on Saturday, the key electoral moment that could shape the country's political future and determine the strength of the military-backed leadership in parliament. The stakes are high for General Oligui Nguema, who assumed the presidency following the ousting of longtime leader Ali Bongo Ondimba. Though he was formally elected president in a contested vote 6 months ago, the latest round of legislative and local election will decide whether he can secure a parliamentary majority to solidify his rule and push forward his agenda. Voters were tasked with selecting 145 members of parliament along with local councillors. These local representatives will later play a crucial role in indirectly choosing senators, mayors, and the presidents of regional assembly, positions critical to the country's decentralized governance structure. Polling stations closed on Saturday evening and vote counting began immediately under the supervision of accredited observers. As of early Monday morning, official results had yet to be released, prolonging anticipation across the country. While the overall election was largely peaceful, according to reports, tensions in some areas disrupted the process. In Undaunted, a suburb of the capital, Libreville, voting was cancelled in one constituency following disputes between competing candidates. The smooth conduct of the vote in most areas was seen as a positive step in Gabon's transition following last year's coup. However, the final result will be a litmus test for the legitimacy and political reach of General Oligui Nguema's government. Other countries await the announcement of the outcome. All eyes remain on how the new parliament will be shaped and whether it will align with the president's ambition in post-coup Gabon. Now, when we return right after the break, we would head in to see what Netanyahu is meeting Trump for, because this meeting is coming amidst the shifting Middle East and uncertain Gaza future. Let's go on this short break. As Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu prepares to meet former U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House today, the backdrop is a Middle East transformed by war-shifting alliances and growing political uncertainty. Central to their discussion will be the ongoing war in Gaza, conflict that has not only redefined Israel's regional posture, but also reshaped Netanyahu's leadership style and international standing. Trump has suggested that a deal to end the war in Gaza is likely, raising expectations for a diplomatic breakthrough. However, the path to peace is politically fraught for Netanyahu, whose once conventional strategies have given way to a far more aggressive and unpredictable approach. Analysts suggest that even with a potential ceasefire framework on the table, the Israeli leader may find it difficult to make the political compromise required to finalize a deal. The transformation of the region since the October 7, 2023 Hamas-led attacks on Israel has been both dramatic and violent. In response, Netanyahu launched a sweeping military campaign aimed at not just defeating Hamas in Gaza, but fundamentally altering Israel's strategic environment. Over the past 2 years, Israeli jets and special forces have carried out high-risk operations that once seemed unthinkable. Targets in Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and even deep into Iran have been struck with capitals such as Damascus and Tehran, now visibly bearing the scars of Israel's expanded reach. The Israeli military operations have also sent shockwaves through Arab states, once seen as potential peace partners. While some Gulf states have maintained quiet channels with Israel, others have distanced themselves in the face of mounting civilian casualties in Gaza and regional instability. Doha, once viewed as a potential mediator, has shifted towards a more confrontational posture, while normalization talks with Riyadh remain frozen. For Netanyahu, the geopolitical fallout is mirrored by this domestic evolution. Once a cautious strategy focused on maintaining the status quo, he has emerged as a leader willing to embrace open-ended conflicts and direct confrontation with regional adversaries. This hardline approach has bolstered his standing among some nationalist constituencies in Israel, but has also deepened divides with traditional Western allies. His meeting with Trump, a close political ally, who may be eyeing a return to the White House, comes at a pivotal moment. While Trump's administration was previously instrumental in advancing the Abraham Accords, the current regional climate is far more volatile. Whether the two leaders can revive any semblance of diplomacy remains to be seen, especially given Netanyahu's reluctance to accept terms that would involve significant concessions to Palestinians or restrictions on Israel military operations. As the war in Gaza grinds on and regional tensions remains high, the outcome of Monday's meeting may set the tone not just for Israel's next military or diplomatic move, but for the broader trajectory of the Middle East and the post-October 7th era. And that's it for tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to the headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that Ambazonians have welcomed campaign periods of the La Republic de Cameroon presidential election with goes down today. Strategic reforms, ethical governance, and leadership renewal has taken center stage in Washington, D.C. as the ASCA assembly continues. Deadly floods in Manyu has exposed Colonial's government's neglect and failed territorial administration. Tonight, we told you that at least 2 members of the squad specialized in kidnappings in Bambouille were killed on Sunday, September 28, 2025. Also, French Cameroon has militarized Ambazonians ahead of presidential election. On the African scene, we went to Gabon, where Gabon is awaiting crucial election results following first vote since 2023 coup. And of course, on the global scene, Netanyahu and Trump's meeting is coming amidst the shifting Middle East and uncertain Gaza future. That's it for Undaunted. Bring it to the news untold stories. On behalf of the technical team behind tonight's production, is good night and God bless.